Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. You heard Joe just say he thinks there's going to be a vote this week. Do you agree with him?
I do think that we will probably vote on this by the time we get to Thursday, and people anticipate that that is the way this is going to most likely move forward.
So, Senator, let's talk about your position on this, because I know there are some things I believe you like in this, particularly, for example, broadband, as for some of the people in Tennessee, frankly. But there are some things you don't like. Where are you overall on what you've seen so far of this bill?
Dave, you're right. There are things that are good. There are things that cause us great concern, one of which is the pay-fors. And money that was to be there that we thought that would be there, whether it's money from the SBA or Fannie Mae or Medicare or unemployment insurance, the numbers are just not adding up. And when you look at the amount of money this administration has spent since Joe Biden came in, the trillions of dollars are ticking up. They are about to hit $7 trillion. Once they do this, and then the $3.5 trillion bill, which is really going to end up being closer to $5 trillion, you have to say, can we really afford this? What Tennesseans want to see is a bill that deals with surface transportation and infrastructure, roads and bridges and railways and waterways and runways and broadband, as you said. But when it comes to a lot of the add-ons, things for the Green New Deal, for green energy, subsidies for electric vehicles, they're saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to go back and revisit this and focus on what is needed. Out of our Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, we moved a $350 billion bipartisan bill that does deal with many of those surface transportation and broadband issues.
Senator, as I understand it, the process right now is one having to do with proposed amendments and voting on amendments.
Yes.
How hopeful are you that there can be significant changes in this proposal that would make you happier?
Well, Dave, there should be some changes in this. I will give you one that we're going to be addressing, and it is the issue of cryptocurrency. There is a tax on cryptocurrency that is in the legislation. There has to be a redefining of who is a broker with cryptocurrency so that individual investors or ISPs that transport data are not going to be adversely impacted or have undue due diligence placed on them.
Well, that's interesting because we're about to hear from Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, speaking at the Aspen Institute about regulation of cryptocurrency. What is your view, with some oversight responsibility, of what the SEC or the executive branch more generally should be doing in regulating, for example, some of the cryptocurrency exchanges?
We have just established a financial innovation caucus. Senators Lummis and Sinema are the lead. I joined them in this caucus because we need to look at cryptocurrency. Those that hold cryptocurrency, some of our banks are beginning to say, okay, how are we going to handle this with those that we bank that hold this in their wallet? So this is an area where we need to view what type of light touch or appropriate regulation should be. I think we're all looking forward to hearing what Gary Gensler has to say.
Finally, Senator, I really want to ask you about China. When you talk about light touch and regulation, that's not what we're seeing, I don't think, at the moment from Beijing when it comes to their tech industry. What do you make from what Beijing is doing with respect to saying, basically, we're not sure we want U.S. investors' money over here?
Well, and this is why U.S. investors should be very wary of their participation with these Chinese companies. And it's very troubling when you look at the crackdown that the Chinese Communist Party is exercising on some of these tech companies, these education companies, online education. They run that valuation to zero, basically, overnight. I will say also, this is one of the reasons that we need a federal privacy and data security law on the books. so that we are there to protect U.S. consumers who are online and maybe are using a platform that is based in China.
Senator, you are known to be one of the lawmakers who understands and knows tech better than any other. So give us a sense whether you think perhaps China may be cutting its nose off to spite its face, to use an expression, and that is to say, will China be less competitive in the tech area given what it's doing right now?
China will become less competitive if they continue to make themselves less trustworthy, which is exactly what they're doing. They're not a trustworthy investment with the actions that they are taking. They are not trustworthy for users because they are continuing to gather and house and mine that data. They are basically building a virtual you of individuals that are on their platforms. They are not trustworthy when it comes to telecommunications companies because they're embedding spyware into their hardware. This is why you see rip and replace being utilized by many of our ILECs and CLECs to rid themselves of Huawei equipment that they used initially to expand access to high-speed internet.
Is the Biden administration doing what it should to try to protect our systems here?
I think the Biden administration should be more aggressive. China is an adversary. We know that they are not there to take favorable actions to the United States or our companies that are doing business in China. We should be very wary of the steps they're taking.
Senator, it's always a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for your time. That's Senator
Good to
Marsha.
see you, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, I wish you well. That's Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee. And this is Bloomberg.